This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV Prime.
Marvel and DC, Tinkle and Amar Chitrakatha, Neil Gaiman and Alan Moore. I'm sure most of you would have heard of these names while you were growing up, even if you were not a big fan of graphic novels. Well, today your options are not just limited to these big names. There are so many independent developers, independent publishers out there who are coming up with some exciting work in the field of graphic novels. So today, on that very note, we will be focusing on exactly what does it take to become a successful graphic novelist in India. Local trains are the lifeline of Mumbai city. Much has been said about them, written about them, and movies have been made around these trains. Having seen a fair share of narratives on the Mumbai locals, Amit Khadge too was hit with an inspiration. Why not come up with a series of graphic novels on the same theme? That's when he got his team together and started creating Train of Thoughts. While this is one of Amit's independent ventures, it took him a lot of passion, hard work and experience in the field of graphic novel design to get there.
Initially, I started with working as a freelancer. I started up taking a job with international publishers related to comic coloring and inking, lettering them. So once I had a good enough portfolio of myself and I had good contacts with the clients, then I started up like with Crimson Studio. I hired a few artists to work with me, and that is how Crimson Studio started up.
While Amit did start off by working with Indian writers initially, he soon realized the importance of the perspective of a third person, someone who wasn't influenced by the Indian culture and could bring in a different perspective to the novel, be it in its design or writing. For that very reason, despite Train of Thoughts being based on a local concept, the artists he roped in for it were of different nationalities.
For Train of Thoughts, my initial idea was to work with Indian writers and work with international artists. I really wanted to see how international artists interpret their how do they interpret the Mumbai local trains, like how do they see the crowd of Mumbai, how do we travel into it. So basically that was my plan. So the writer was from Mumbai and the artist, one of the artists was from Indonesia. He's been a good professional artist. He's been working in since a long time in international market. His name is Donny. And the other artist was from Ukraine. Her name is Barbara, and she is also very proficient working at drawing specifically human expressions and all. So these two artists have collaborated with us working with Train of Thoughts.
So what are the factors that you need to make your graphic novel a hit? While a stellar idea and gripping images definitely takes your novel a long way, one of the most important factors that cannot be overlooked is coordination between the artist and the writer. Take the Recade series by Crimson Studio. While Amit's specialization is art, Avinash, a former IITian, scripts the series. So just how important a part does the coordination between the artist and the writer play in such a case?
We come up with the story, we write a script on based on what we want to show in each of the panels. Now that is shared with the illustrator or the graphic designer. So once that is shared, they come out with a layout. So now that layout, we do a back and forth on that layout, and we finally log the layout that this is working for us, and then it goes into illustration and then coloring and inking and then finally editing. So this is how it happens. This is a pretty simple process where we also share references. Like if I'm writing a frame, a description of a frame, so then I know that this is how it should look. So I attach a reference to it, and they work on the reference, and then we figure out, okay, this is working for us, and we go ahead.
From a writer's perspective, scripting for graphic novels holds much appeal as it gives you the much needed creative freedom.
Graphic novels give us the creative freedom because writing for films and TV, there's a lot of creative interferences. So one thing I really liked about graphic novels is that the product that I want to make, what I want out of my story, it has eventually happened. That the story that I'm writing, and I have had my say in it, and I have had the creative freedom to create a world that I want to. You need a writer, you need a illustrator, you need a graphic designer or colorist, and you need somebody who can edit so the processes are simple, and anybody can make a graphic novel. So I think that is very, and a lot many players at this point. I see a lot many studios that are coming up with their new product, and they're pretty good, some of them.
The demand scenario for graphic novels in India is slowly changing. While graphic novels on mythology still happen to be the most popular in our country, it is slowly giving way to other genres like adventure, science fiction, and horror. One of the most crucial factors spurring the demand is the fact that international graphic novels are now being made into movies. Even though Indian graphic novels are yet to see this phenomenon, a positive sentiment is definitely resonating among graphic novelists back home.
And it's not just a Mumbai phenomenon. Other parts of India too are witnessing a rise in the number of indie graphic artists. Unlike artists from abroad, not all of their comics have to do with superheroes. Indian artists' themes range from Indian history, Indian civic society, political rhetoric, and even a day in the life of an ordinary citizen. Here's one such startup from Bengaluru. What do a software engineer and an economics graduate have in common? In most cases, it's very little. But when it comes to this duo, it's a love for graphic novels. What then do two people with a love for graphic novels and who dislike the typical 9-to-5 run-of-the-mill job do? They quit their existing jobs and join forces to create graphic novels themselves.
So even at heart, we're still geeks. Our workspaces, our houses are littered with comic books and action figures, even now. So doing something you love is sort of like the reward that we were looking for. That's why we left like really good careers in our corporate lives to come and do this. Something which is like, a big question mark whether this is the right career choice or not, but we do believe in it. We do believe that India is ripe for, entertainment franchises, not just for the Indian market, but something that can travel around the world. When you see that this guy got minus.
Suhas Sundar and Deepak Mishra now know that their bet paid off. They are the creators of one of the country's most successful graphic novels, Udayan. Set in medieval Kerala, Udayan has a unique storyline that is centered around a Kalaripayattu fighting, mysterious vigilante named Udayan who takes on the Zamorin. While Suhas is the writer of the novel, Deepak takes care of the dark artwork that has piqued readers' interest.
Deepak drew him, and once he fashioned what he would look like, that's when the story really started coming together. Because till then we were still on the fence whether we should do something which looks very, very South Indian, very, very deeply entrenched in Kerala, or should we do something that has got a bit more universal appeal? And that tipping point happened once Deepak drew the main characters. That period of Kerala is kind of like the samurai period or the Wild West. We had our own version in India, but nobody's really written about it, at least not in English. So that was a time of where martial arts reigned supreme. The best fighter, had everything. He had wealth, he had everything he had patronage from the kings, etc. So it was a very, very feudal era. It was absolutely fascinating, but there's absolutely no graphic novels about it. So from Japan, you have so many samurai epics coming in, etc. From India, we've got nothing. So we decided to tackle that.
Today, Udayan has amassed a fan following across the country. Together with the other novels that they have published, they have over 45,000 people following their Facebook page so far. But as graphic novelists and content creators, the duo say that there's a lot more to do than meets the eye. Firstly, writing for graphic novels is no easy feat.
Everybody thinks that, hey, I can write a comic book. But it's not that simple. It's a two-pronged approach. You have to use the pictures as well as the text to tell a particular story. You can show the same image and write 10 different caption boxes, and each one would infer a different meaning. So it's that nuance that you see a lot of comic book writers having from abroad that's absent in India. And when it comes to the regular flow of the story, we've used a very non-linear way of telling a story. So you have the story of the central character progressing forward, and suddenly you might be hit with a flashback for 3-4 pages, and then the flashback of some other character, and then you return back to this linear line. So we don't So that is kind of like an American style of doing comics, or you can even say a very Franco-Belgian style of doing comics. It's pretty much like writing a good movie script. It's exactly like that. You visualize it, you write down what angles, what shots, and the artist interprets it. So that is how at least I approach the entire writing process.
If writing the novel can be challenging, Deepak says that the artwork can get tougher still. Both need reams of research to go into it.
The brief which I got for this particular page was that I had to show a puja being performed and people surrounding the priest playing instruments, musical instruments who would be doing the puja, as well as there is a fair going on in the city and there is an arena where people are gathering, people have started to gather. So what I had to research upon, how would the people be dressing, how are the instruments being played, what is the position of each guy who's playing the instrument around the priest. So this is the design research into that. I have done research into what kind of clothes they will be wearing, what instruments will be played and in what position each of them would be standing. Also the arena itself has been designed keeping in mind where the king would be sitting, where the local noblemen would be sitting. After that, we come to the part where we plan out the page itself and we do what is called a basic thumbnailing, where we sketch out the page roughly. We do that for both the pages, and then comes the final part of doing the page itself, where if you can see each of the things which has been researched upon has been put into the page directly.
While Deepak is a self-taught artist and illustrator, Suhas had not been familiar with writing for graphic novels specifically. They say that this can be easily overcome by anyone with an interest in the space.
How to make comic books, or for that matter how to do animation, is to watch a lot of finished content, read a lot of comic books, watch a lot of animation films, study it. That is the best learning you can get. There is enough and more content which has been created through decades now, and the more you look at it, the more you try and understand, more you try to dissect what kind of storytelling the director or the creator have been trying to do. I think your grasp of the overall art would increase. A lot of disillusionment happens initially when people tell you that you do not need to have that much skill to get into this field, which is just not true. It is very much required for you to be on top of your game and for you to know what you want to do to get into this field. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of sweat, a lot of blood goes into creation of any of the product.
Today, the two are successfully collaborating on various other projects at Nihodo Media. They also expect to take Udayan beyond the graphic novel, and it may soon be a moving picture. That was the story of Nihodo Media. Up next, Ankita talks to students who wish to be graphic novelists.